Hello, Hammers! Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Stay tuned so you're always up to date with the biggest Hammers stories. West Ham fans, we've been through it all with this club. We know what it means to believe we know what it means to suffer, and above all, we know what it means to want to see the team evolve. The truth is, this season has started with a bitter taste. West Ham have only won once in their first 7 league matches, and what's most worrying is something we can all see clearly: there's a lack of attacking power. There's no one who can put the ball in the net regularly. There's no reliable man up front. Nuno Espirito Santo has come in to manage the team, and little by little he's trying to make adjustments. But even he must have realized by now that without a true goal scorer, no tactical system will work. Callum Wilson and Nicholas Füllkrug have both been tried and given chances, but neither has managed to establish himself as the ideal number 9. And when a manager looks at the bench and doesn't see a clear solution, the only way out is the transfer market. And that's exactly what West Ham are doing, already planning for the January window. The club knows it needs to act and can't repeat the mistakes of past seasons when opportunities slipped away. The board are aware that Nuno needs more attacking options, and several names are already being discussed internally. One of the first names to come up recently is Joshua Zirkzee from Manchester United. A young player with talent, yes, but still a gamble. He could be useful, but is he the man to solve things straight away? Can West Ham afford to wait for a young player to adapt while the results aren't coming? That's the difference between a promising signing and a decisive one. And that's when another much bigger name appears: Ivan Toney. Now that's a player who grabs attention. A strong, physical, goal-scoring striker with a proven record. Someone who doesn't need time to adapt to the English style because he's already shown he can score in the Premier League. More than that, someone with personality. A player who doesn't hide when things get tough. That kind of player has always been valued by West Ham supporters because he brings grit, presence in the box, and the ability to decide games. The big news is that there's a real chance Toney could be available in January. After his time at Al Ahly in Saudi Arabia, there's the possibility he could leave on loan. And that changes everything. Because it seems West Ham won't have a big budget for permanent transfers. So, if there's a chance to bring in a striker of that caliber on loan, the club obviously needs to act. And it's not just anyone saying this. The one who revealed the situation was Mick Brown, former senior scout at West Ham. Someone with strong internal connections and who knows the club's backstage like few others. He stated clearly, Ivan Toney is on West Ham's radar. He went on to say that the current strikers aren't delivering and that Toney would be an excellent fit for both the team's style and the Premier League. And he's right. When you look at the market, there aren't many strikers available with Toney's goal-scoring record. And when a name like that comes up, especially with the chance of a loan, it's almost a golden opportunity. For a club that needs immediate impact, it makes perfect sense. Of course, West Ham won't be alone in this race. Aston Villa are also keeping a close eye on the situation and might try to join the fight. But the question is, will West Ham act quickly or wait too long and miss yet another chance? With Nuno in charge, the expectation is that the club will be more aggressive and make decisions with more conviction. Interestingly, Toney himself is also keen to return to the Premier League, not just for visibility, but for an even bigger reason: the England national team. Since moving abroad, he's lost his place. Thomas Tuchel even said he could use him while he was playing in Saudi Arabia, but in practice, that didn't happen. Toney is frustrated. He knows that to fight for a World Cup spot, he needs to be performing at a high level in a top league and being a key player. And let's be honest, if he joins West Ham, he'd instantly become a key figure. He'd be a starter, the main man, the trusted striker up front. It would be good for the club and great for him. A partnership that makes sense for both sides. Before we carry on, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. This is really important because it strengthens the Claret and Blue family, making our West Ham bigger and stronger every day. When we take a closer look, we can see that Ivan Toney's situation goes far beyond a simple transfer rumor. There's a much bigger context behind it. He doesn't just want to change clubs. He wants to win back his place, become relevant again, and wear the England shirt once more. And that's only going to happen if he returns to the Premier League and gets real playing time. Thomas Tuchel, England's current manager, even said he'd consider Toney while he was playing abroad. But in practice, that didn't happen. The last time the striker played for the national team was in a match against Senegal, coming on only in the final minutes. And here's an interesting detail that was actually England's only defeat since Tuchel took charge. Since then, Toney has pretty much vanished from the radar. And why does that matter to West Ham? Because every player with World Cup ambitions wants to be playing at a high level. And if Tony decides to return to the Premier League, he'll choose a club where he can be the main man. At Aston Villa, for example, he'd have to compete with Ollie Watkins, who's in great form, and is Harry Kane's direct backup for the national team. At West Ham, though, things would be different. He'd arrive as the leading man, the focal point in attack, and have the freedom to be the goal scorer we all know he can be. Of course, there are obstacles. West Ham aren't in a strong financial position. The board might not have the money for major permanent signings. That's why the idea of a loan deal is so important. Bringing Tony in on loan wouldn't just solve the lack of goals. It would also ease the spending pressure. It's a smart move. And when an executive like Mick Brown says the club are keeping an eye on this possibility, it's not just empty talk. It's insider information. Now let's be honest, West Ham's current attack doesn't scare anyone. Callum Wilson is experienced and knows how to score, but he's inconsistent and has a history of injuries. Füllkrug works hard and gets involved, but he still hasn't found consistency. The team managed to create chances, but there's no one who finishes them off with composure. And in a league as intense as the Premier League, that makes all the difference. Since arriving, Nuno Espirito Santo has tried to bring more balance to the team. He organizes the defense, well-adjusts the midfield, but without someone to finish things off up front, all that collective effort goes to waste. Every West Ham fan knows we've seen this before in past seasons, good performances wasted by a lack of finishing. And that kind of situation wears down both the team's and the fans' confidence. That's why bringing in a true number 9 could completely change the club's atmosphere. A goal scorer doesn't just bring goals. He brings belief, respect from opponents, and confidence to the rest of the squad. When the team know they've got someone who can deliver, everyone plays more freely. Midfielders take more risks with passes, wingers cross with more conviction, and the manager can build the system around him. And let's be honest, West Ham have had strikers who left their mark. Older fans remember players who not only scored goals but had real character. The club has always valued strength, determination, and presence in the box. Ivan Toney fits that profile perfectly. He fights, annoys defenders, takes penalties with confidence, and knows how to play with his back to goal. He's exactly the kind of striker who embodies the spirit of West Ham. But it's not all straightforward. Aston Villa are interested, and other clubs could also join the race. The question is, will West Ham act quickly and decisively, or will they hesitate again? Because in previous windows, we've seen the club chase great players and then either back out or move too late. And fans are tired of seeing opportunities slip away. The good news is that now we've got Nuno. And Nuno, unlike some past managers, likes to have full control of his squad. He's not passive in the market. He identifies what's needed, targets his man, and demands action from the board. If he really wants Tony, he'll push hard for it. And fans love that. They like a manager who takes initiative, who sees what's wrong and tries to fix it. On top of that, the idea of signing players on loan could free up funds for other areas. Because let's be honest, it's not just the attack that needs reinforcements. The squad lacks depth. There are positions that need more options, especially if we want to compete seriously in all competitions. So if the club managed to bring in Tony on loan, they can use the saved money to strengthen other areas. In the end, this potential deal for Tony represents much more than just a signing. It represents ambition. It represents a change in mindset. It shows that West Ham want to stop merely taking part in the league and start becoming real contenders. And after so many years of ups and downs, the fans truly deserve to see that step forward. Before we carry on, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. This is really important because it strengthens the Claret and Blue family, making our West Ham bigger and stronger every day. When we talk about the possible arrival of Ivan Toney, a lot of people think it's just another transfer rumor. But in reality, this could be a turning point for West Ham. Not just because of the player himself, but because of the kind of statement the club would be making with such a move. Here's the thing, signing just any striker is one thing, but signing a striker with real presence is something else entirely. And Toney has presence. He's the kind of player who changes how opponents see you. Right now, when teams face West Ham, they respect a few midfield names. They respect Bowen, but they don't fear the center forward. And that makes a difference. A team with a proper number 9 who scores goals makes defenders think twice. It creates space mistakes insecurity. West Ham need to start being a nuisance again. And there's another point that hardly anyone talks about, how a signing like that affects the dressing room. When a big player arrives, it instantly raises standards. Other strikers feel the pressure. Training becomes more intense. The manager gains more tactical options. And the squad realizes the club is actually trying to improve. That builds confidence. Because the worst feeling in a dressing room is when players sense that the club isn't really trying to get better. Players can tell when the board are ambitious, and that has a huge impact on performances. Now, looking at West Ham's recent past, the more experienced fans have seen this before, a team competing well but lacking that decisive player. Sometimes we create chances but don't finish. The midfield works but the ball dies in the box. It's exhausting. We've seen entire seasons ruined by a lack of firepower. And honestly, we can't keep relying on strikers who score once every few games. The Premier League is ruthless. If you don't have someone who finishes quickly, you pay the price. And that's where having someone like Toney matters, someone who doesn't need time to adapt to English football. He's already proved he can do it here. He knows how to use his body, how to position himself, how to hold off defenders, and how to take penalties with composure. That kind of striker is worth gold even if it's only on loan. And speaking of loans, that's another factor that makes this opportunity rare. Usually a player of that level only moves for big money. But if there really is a chance of a loan deal, it's not something you ignore. Because it looks like West Ham won't have much to spend on permanent signings right now. So if there's a chance to get someone of this caliber without breaking the bank, they have to go for it. The problem is other clubs know that too. Aston Villa are interested, and if they move with more conviction, they could easily get him. The difference will be who acts first, who presents the best plan, who convinces the player that he'll be the main man. And that's where Nuno Espirito Santo comes in. He's not the kind of manager who accepts a secondary role. He'll want a striker he can rely on. And if he insists that Toney is essential, the board need to listen. Because if West Ham really want to compete at a high level, they need to stop waiting for things to fall into place. They need to be proactive. The Premier League is insanely competitive. Mid-table clubs are investing heavily, organizing themselves, thinking big. If West Ham just keep reacting, they'll get left behind. And with Nuno in charge, fans are expecting something different. They're expecting action. And let's be realistic, this wouldn't just solve a short-term issue. If West Ham bring in Toney and he performs, it could change how the club is seen across the market. Players would start looking at West Ham differently. Young talents might see it as a good destination. The club's image would improve, and that's important in the long run. On the other hand, if the club have the chance and do nothing, that sends a clear message to lack of ambition. And that frustrates fans, especially the older ones who are tired of seeing the club stall. We've seen it before. Great opportunities missed because someone hesitated. Good signings slipping away because negotiations dragged on. There comes a time when fans just want to see the club make firm decisions. And right now, Toney represents more than just a player. He represents a choice, a statement. He shows whether West Ham want to just survive in the league or truly compete. Whether they want to be respected or just another team. And to be honest, with Nuno in charge, this is the perfect moment to take that step. Nuno's a manager who values structure, balance, and competitiveness. If the club give him the right tools, he'll build a solid side. And with a proper finisher, West Ham could be far more dangerous than many expect. Because the problem isn't the system, it's the execution. Without someone to finish, any system fails. With a real number 9, everything fits better. The team plays with more freedom, more confidence, more efficiency. In the end, the question isn't, is Toney good? Everyone knows he is. The question is, will West Ham have the courage? Because if they bring him in, everything changes. If they hesitate, it's the same old story. And honestly, it's about time this club started acting like a big team. Not talking, doing. And that's all for today's West Ham news. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to hit the like button, share it with fellow fans, and of course subscribe to the channel so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Come on, you Irons!